yeah, whenever I test a relay or a sensor on this car, I always use an appropriate testing harness. Someone suggested that I could just, what you can do is just back probe these connectors with a paper clip and save yourself a lot of money. And I understand that. What happened to me was one of the first things I did when I started working on this car was to rebuild this entire ignition system distributor. And when I got down in the base of this and I went to unplug the connector to the ignition control module, it shattered. It's plastic, and it shattered into about probably 10 or 15 pieces. Another thing that happened, the same thing kind of happened to me on this connector for the map sensor. One of the pieces broke off, so two of the wires were just sitting next to each other. The exact same thing happened to me on this throttle position sensor. When I went to unplug the connector, a piece of the connector had broke off and was stuck up inside of the throttle position sensor, so I had to take the sensor off and fish that piece out. The point is, these connectors, relays, pigtails on this car, they're over 30 years old. They're plastic, they're brittle, they've been exposed to a lot of heat, a lot of extreme cold, oil. They've been plugged in, unplugged over the years. And what happens when when you take a paper clip and stick it inside of a connector that's brittle, you run the risk of snapping something off up inside there very easily. Best case scenario is you smell smoke coming from underneath the dashboard, and you can disconnect the battery really quick. I have a quick disconnect on mine, and also keep a fire extinguisher handy at all times inside the car. But yeah, taking a paper clip and sticking it down inside of a 30-year-old plastic brittle connector, it's a little dangerous. For maybe a newer car where the connectors are still, the plastic is still good and it's still flexible, it might not be such a bad thing. But I'm not going to do it on my car. I'm not going to do it on this 30-year-old Crossfire. But I've gone through the entire car. I've replaced all the sensors, all the relays, rebuilt all the connectors. Yeah, I also had a problem with the cooling temperature sensor pigtail. Was a piece of the cover was snapped off, so I had to replace that. Exact same thing happened to me on the pigtail for the cooling fan switch. Right there, I had to replace that pigtail. The piece of the cover that goes over the switch itself actually snapped a little bit. And anytime you expose wires, a hot and a ground wire together, or get them close, you run the risk of something sparking. Like I say, the best case scenario would be that you smell smoke underneath the dashboard and you disconnect the battery real quick. Worst case scenarios is catches on fire overnight while you're sleeping. But even with replacing all the pigtails, all the relays, and all the sensors and all the connectors, bringing it up to date, I still disconnect the battery at night. But that's why I don't back probe using wires and paper clips. Not on this car. It's just too old.